Well, I'm so excited to let you know that we have a part 2 to this series. My name is Jeff York, and I go by the Wealthy Custodian. So I really strongly encourage you to stay tuned and listen to part 2 of HSA in-depth probing questions, tricks, and ideas to get you to reach your financial goals.
This scenario is with domestic partners with adult children, and together this family will end up or would be eligible to make a contribution of $44,750 for the family. So let me step you through.
I saw that last night.
So for anyone that's poo-pooing HSAs and saying they're too small.
If you're late to catching up to your financial independence, this is a great way and a pathway to get there and to use this tool. That's how I look at it. When I left the school, I was not fearful. When you have money, you have tools. If you have tools, you have options. And I just see this giving you another option, Jackie. How would you come about it? I mean, look at what it's done to your life.
Right.
Look what 12 years of behavior has done for you.
You talk about sometimes this being a rich person's game, Jack. Obviously, Jeff did it on a very low income, but you did it on less than six-figure income, and I'm a higher income individual. We're all doing it. And the message here is everybody can do it to their own level. But you could turn this into open a Roth IRA for her. She's working. You fund it because she doesn't have the ability to do so. And then you fund her HSA. So look at what you've done between when they're like 21 and 26 or 18 and 26. You've set them up for being millionaires.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. Look at that. We've already turned Pam's family into millionaires.
If they implement the knowledge and back it up with behavior.
Welcome to Catching Up to FI, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to FI together. All right. Well, welcome back to the show. We are now going to get into some drawdown strategies. We mentioned it a little bit before, but Bill, tell us about your drawdown strategy for your health savings account.
Well, I'm going to wait till after 65 to do anything with this and pay Medicare premiums with it. But like Jeff, I want to let it grow. I mean, the 80 plan is a good idea. So there's really a early drawdown strategy with Medicare premiums. And unless there's a big health event that we have to take care of before then, where our little sinking fund doesn't just take care of it and we haven't kept building it. So I'm learning about this now, and I want to hear about your guys' ideas because I'm Joe Average here. I know a little bit about it and I have it, but I haven't refined these drawdown strategies. So you guys fill us in on yours.
Yeah. So Jeff, you talked a little bit about the 80 plan. Flesh that out a little bit for us. Like, I guess by the time you get to 80, what do you estimate your HSA will be worth when you're ready to use it?
Well, if you use the rule of 72, I hope it's approaching like 300,000 by then. Hope it doubles and triples a couple of times. And I'm reinvesting the dividends back in and everything like that. And the four funds that the life strategy at Vanguard that I have at the moderate growth one, I think it's like 7 or 8%. I'm not trying to hit it out of the ballpark or anything, but I'm hoping it gets up to 300,000,
So, and that will assume that you will stop making contributions at 65 once you get on Medicare, right? Because you can.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I figure I can do it 20, 25, 26, 27, 28, and then 29, I'll be able to do like a half.
Jackie's going to be the first 7-figure HSA. If she does the 80 plan, she's got what? 3 doubling times in there.
Yeah, I want to get Jackie back on a high deductible plan.
So that's true. Okay.
So you can start funding it. That's just my opinion. If we were sitting down having a libation together, that would be something I would be strongly encouraging my little sister to do.
Yeah. So you outed me. So here's the thing. As far as my drawdown, I have already started my drawdown, and part of my drawdown in these early years is still very, very small. Like, I'm not even taking out $1,000 a year. Right. So since I retired, I said, you know what, I'm going to cash in all these digital receipts and I'm just going to take the money and use that to live off of. But it's just minimal right now. But my drawdown strategy is when my Medicare costs starts, which would be at 65. So even if you retire early, you still have your later years to think about. And I'm at that point. So when I turn 65, I plan on using my HSA to cover my Medicare premiums, and the parts that you can use to cover it is you can use it to cover Part B, which is, D is for drugs. So you can use it for that. B is just the copays, like going to the doctor and visits and stuff like that. And then even you can do Part C, but you can't use it to pay Medigap. Okay. And we do have a slide on that in the presentation. So just refer to that. But anything that I can use my HSA dollars to cover when it comes to my Medicare premiums, I'm going to use that. But also I'll start using it for out of pocket for those other things that Medicare typically doesn't cover: vision, hearing, things like that, dental.
Yeah, I'm already paying for that every month, premium for my vision and dental. Right.
Okay. So for me, I would at this, like when it comes to dental and vision, the expenses aren't crazy like medical. So I'm not even concerned about having a dental insurance plan or even a vision insurance plan. I would pay out of pocket, and that out of pocket would come from my HSA. So that's how I plan on drawing it down. So I'm at about $200,000 now. It's growing at a rate of, let's just say, 8 to 12% a year. But right now, I'm only taking out about $1,000. When Medicare starts, the Part B will roughly be about $200 a month or $2,400. So that's still, my account will still be growing, even though I'm starting to draw it down. But that is my plan. But you know what all three of us have to think about? What if we have a big chunk of money in our HSA when we die? What are we going to do with it?
You supersize it. And much like, how do you deal with a 529 plan that's overfunded? What do you do with an overfunded HSA? And that's going to be a concern for people to get started in their youth and have multiple decades to do this.
Yeah. So Jeff, I guess what's your plan? Do you have like beneficiary names on your account? And how do you plan on leaving that if you still have funds in your HSA after you pass away?
Mine's going to a nonprofit.
Okay, that's awesome. Why a nonprofit?
Because in my lifestyle, I don't have anyone to really give it to. And for me, since I don't have that as a legacy, the nonprofits will be my legacy. Just like when I was fishing, I almost was killed by a 25 diameter inch limb that fell out of a tree while I was fishing.
Oh my gosh, when did that happen, Jeff?
Oh, I didn't mean to throw that. But anyways, if that had happened to me, all of my assets would go to charity. That's my strategy. And if I remember correctly, if it goes to a charity, it's tax-free, correct?
That's correct. And a charity would not pay taxes in any circumstances. But I kind of brought that up to talk a little bit about the tax ramifications after you pass away. But Bill, what do you plan on doing with yours? You have a spouse, right?
Yeah, it would go to her tax-free, and she could use it. That's the best option if you're married. After that, right now, I have it split between my boys, but there are tax issues there. And you have a strategy for that I want to hear about.
Yeah, I do. And let me just generally tell you how it works depending on who the beneficiary is on that HSA account. As you mentioned, Bill, if it's a spouse, then they can take over. There's no tax implications whatsoever. Right now, if it's not a spouse, if it's a child, if it's a niece, a nephew, or somebody else, then they do have to pay taxes, and it no longer is an HSA. So you got to think about that. So if we've got these supersized HSAs and we pass away with these, let's say if it's $200,000, I don't necessarily want my daughter immediately getting $200,000 taxed to her, but that's exactly what would happen. And if you leave it to your estate, there's some other little caveats, but it would be filed on the deceased person's tax return, and it no longer is an HSA. So here's my plan. And there's an awesome article that I'll link to from Kitsis, and we know this guy's a genius, but he had a wonderful article titled Deathbed Drawdown, Making Tax Efficient Distributions of Large Balances When There's Not Much Time. So I read that, and that probably somehow influenced what my thoughts are. So Because my HSA has gotten so big, I've had to think a lot about this and the fact that I don't have a spouse. So leaving it to a spouse is not even an option. So what I've decided to do, that's the one account where if I want to leave any of my assets to anyone else other than my daughter, they're on that account. So Fidelity's going to be mad at me because I got like 10 different beneficiaries on that account. They are like nieces or siblings, and I have 2 charities on that account. So it's going to be broken up. So the tax implications is not that big for any of them. And for the nonprofits, obviously, they would not pay taxes. So that is the account where I'm dumping all of my beneficiaries in there that I want to leave anything, because I don't want one person inheriting $200,000 that they're going to pay hefty taxes on. So that's my drawdown strategy.
So you're diversifying the tax liability across 10 lives.
Yes.
So you're spreading out that, correct?
Yes. And here's the thing, you guys. So we're all Gen Xers here. I feel like our generation is the first generation that even has this as a consideration to have a big HSA, because the baby boomers that are retiring now, HSAs hadn't been around that long. So their balances aren't that big. But for us, these HSAs have been around 20 years where they could be getting big. And then the generation behind us, they could even have more. So this is something that is important to a lot of us that are in our 50s and 60s and thinking about retiring with a really large HSA.
Question, Jackie, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So my question would be, so when these individuals receive it, heaven forbid, do they have to take it out in 10 years based on today's current tax law with a traditional IRA? Is that how it is?
No, they do not, because if it's a spouse, there's no strings attached at all. There's no tax issue. But if someone else gets it, let's say my daughter, it stops being an HSA immediately. So the funds are unencumbered. So she can use them however they want, but she is going to get taxed on it.
Oh, so it comes as an immediate distribution right in. It can't go over to an IRA then.
Correct. There's no rollover. There's none of that. It just stops being an HSA. The whole thing is taxable.
Right in the year that you inherited, right?
Correct. Yeah, you're done that year. And I don't know if you get a year after that or if it's immediately. The nuances are in the code.
Ordinary income, correct?
Ordinary income.
No step up in basis or any of that kind of stuff.
None of that. So not like a brokerage account.
Okay. Just thought I'd ask.
Here's another hack I just came up with.
Okay.
So you want to have people with low marginal tax brackets to get this because they'll be taxed less. But what if you give it to a baby? What if you give it to somebody that has no tax return?
Well, here's the thing, Bill. So a minor is not a valid, they can't really inherit money if they're a minor. So you can't do that. However, it could be someone that doesn't have any income or they're a low income individual. Now, again, if it's $200,000, that just made them a high income individual, right?
So Jackie, if you could be almost discriminatory and say, this particular relative is at a high income, so I don't want him to inherit my HSA. Does that make sense?
You can do all kinds of things. Now, because mine is so big, any one person, even if they have normally zero income, they're immediately going to have a high, if it was just that one person. But that's kind of my little strategy. But like I said, because mine had gotten so big, I really had to think mindfully about this. And there's plenty of people in our audience that could be getting there. If you're in your 30s, 40s, or 50s, and you like these HSA eligible plans and you're shoveling it away for long term, they could grow pretty big.
Are there any common scenarios, Jackie, that you should go over with our audience, the most common ones, or have we already covered that?
We did some of them, Bill, but I put together some scenarios. Now, the presentation will have several, but I'd love to go over the one that just kind of blows your mind a little bit. So I'm going to, yeah. I'm going to share that one. Okay.
My head's bulging already.
Yeah, your head blew off. And I've been putting together these scenarios, these case studies, and we love case studies, right, guys? I've been putting together these case studies for a long time. So I'm going to show you my favorite one that pushes the envelope on any scenario. Now, I've done plenty of research on this and confirmed it and had other financial professionals and tax professionals to confirm them. So this is, if you have the slides, it's case study number 5. But this scenario is with domestic partners with adult children. And together, this family will end up or would be eligible to make a contribution of $44,750 for the family. So let me step you through.
I saw that last night.
So for anyone that's poo-pooing HSAs and saying they're too small, okay. So the couple's name is Jack and Jill. Now, this is an unmarried couple that are domestic partners, okay? Now, every single member of this family is on Jill's HSA eligible family plan. So Jill is 55 years old. That means that she gets the catch-up contribution, okay? Now, since she's a domestic partner, she's not married, her tax status is single. And I'm looking at 2025. So we showed you that checklist. She checks off everything to say that she is able to contribute the maximum for a family plan, which is $8,550 for 2025, plus she gets a catch-up contribution. Now, who else is in this family? We got Jack. Remember, Jack is not her husband. They are domestic partners, but he is on her plan. So he has the same tax status, single. They can't file together. He's single. So he gets to contribute the family max, and he gets $1,000 catch-up contribution, right? Now, they have 3 kids, all right? They're all adults, and none of them are tax dependent. The first 2 kids are Jasmine and Josh, and they are adult children that are no longer tax dependent, but they're on this family plan, which means that they can contribute the family maximum, both of them, which is $8,550. So Jasmine can contribute that $8,550, and so can Josh. Now they have another child. That other child's name is Jalen. Jalen is 24. Jalen is also an adult child that is not a tax dependent. So Jalen also gets to contribute the family maximum of $8,550. So everyone in this scenario, in this family, can contribute the family maximum of $8,550. But Jack and Jill, since they're over 55, they can do the $1,000 catch up. If you're following me, do the math.
I know.
Do the math, Jeff? You did the math?
I have my fingers up. I'm using my fingers to start. So let me ask you this question, Jackie.
Yeah.
Are these biological children, or are these children from another previous marriage?
You know what? It doesn't matter.
Oh, really?
It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't have to be biological from the domestic partners.
Correct. So it doesn't really matter.
And if these 3 kids don't have that 8,500, Jack and Jill can do it for them, correct?
Correct. And these kids probably don't want to be spending their money putting it in the HSA. Jack and Jill can contribute that. And just for the sake of the scenario, let's say they're all Jill's children. And then Jack came along later on.
Right. We kind of do sometimes.
But you could have a blended family.
Yeah.
And they all have blonde hair. And you get a bonus for having blonde hair. But Jack has 10 kids.
Correct. So this is the one that I chose because I just wanted to really push it to the limit. But every single person has to go through that IRS checklist to see if they are eligible. And every single one of them are eligible to open up their own HSA and contribute the family maximum.
But this takes advantage of that window between adulthood and 26.
Right, because obviously the kids can no longer be on the parents' plan once they turn 26. So yes, this is an opportunity that has a short window. Now with the domestic partner thing, they can do that for however long, as long as they're on each other's plans and it's a family plan.
That's going to be a common scenario because people aren't getting married and they need to know that as domestic partners, they can do this. This is like the spousal Roth. Which is it's exactly the same. So if you want to think about this and you're domestic partners, you're not married, you're tax independent, you can do a spousal HSA.
Correct. Well, and now the big thing to remember in this scenario is that this is an unmarried couple that are domestic partners. If you were married, you would share a family contribution.
Okay, we have to call it the domestic partner HSA.
Right. The domestic partner rule. Yeah, there we go. The domestic partner provision or something like that. But this kind of blows my mind. So there are other scenarios within the presentation that we'll make available to everyone. Bill, we got a few questions, right? We threw this out to our community that had some questions. So, Bill, did you mind pulling those questions up and asking us, see if stump Jeff and Jackie with HSA questions?
This will be the myths, tips, and tricks on HSA.
We're about to head into your questions, but I did want to drop the official rules. We talked about a lot, and we want to make sure that if you want to double check anything or you want to reference, that you have the official resource. There are three main ones. The main one is publication number 696 through the IRS that talks about all the rules and regulations. Publication number 502 for qualified medical, dental, and vision expenses, a whole list. And then also that notice that I talked to you about, that I mentioned about preventative care and chronic conditions and things like that. So this will be included in the copy of the presentation that you have. But Bill, let's go ahead and go into those questions. And while Bill is reading those questions, just remember, we love to stay in touch with you. So check us out at catchinguptofi.com. Buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/catchinguptofi. Our link tree has all of our social media. And if you have any other questions, you can drop them in the Facebook group. But we had a lot of great questions. And Bill, I cannot wait to hear them. And why don't you actually mention some of our sponsors that they support us and work that we do around things like this?
Okay, yeah, we have some great sponsors that we recommend to our entire audience. And the first this month, Abundo Wealth is sponsoring every episode. It's an advice-only financial planning firm for everyone. And we encourage you to go to their website and check them out. Look for a link in the show notes. And then again, DeleteMe is a sponsor of our show. And if you want your personal data taken off the web, they will comb the web and take your name, social security number, birth date, a lot of things that you don't want out there that make it to the dark web off the internet. Jackie is a big proponent of the Boston Institute of Finance, CFP, Personal Growth Track, where even if you don't want to be a CFP, you can have a separate growth track and expand your knowledge base. And you'll get a discount if you use the code Catching Up when you go to their website. Also, we're big fans of Nectarine. If you want advice-only financial advisors, it's $150 for the first hour of advice, and they help you find flat fee, fee-only, advice-only financial planners that aren't selling you anything. Lastly, we're proponents of the Personal Finance Club. Jeremy Schneider does a great job. He has a couple of courses out there. Use the code CUTFI to entry-level courses on how do I get started. You can't go wrong there, and you'll get some money off on buying those courses. But now it's time to stump Jeff and Jackie. Okay, this is HSA Jeopardy.
A lot of pressure there.
So for $1,000, Trisha from our Facebook group asked a few questions here, and she wants to know about inheriting HSAs and beneficiaries. She says, I feel like I read somewhere that if you are unmarried or leaving your HSA to anyone other than a spouse, the HSA is turned into an IRA for the beneficiary, and they will be taxed. So if you plan to leave dollars to charity, start with your HSA. Was my takeaway correct on this, or did I come to the wrong conclusion?
Okay, I will answer that. I talked about that a little bit, but Trisha is right on. Great job, Trisha. So if an HSA stops being an HSA, if anyone else inherits it besides a spouse. So the idea of putting a charity on there, which Jeff, you talked about that, a charity, a nonprofit organization does not have to pay taxes. So you got your tax problem solved there. Now it's not really turned into an IRA. So did she say if it's a spousal, it says the HSA is turned into an IRA for the beneficiary. Okay. So it won't turn into an IRA at all. So that's the only little part. It just stops being an HSA if it goes to anyone other than a spouse. And of course, if your spouse gets it, no tax implications. They can take it on as their own and they're fine. So Trisha, you heard right.
Okay. Maybe we should give this one to Jeff, but it's a little more complicated one, and we'll see if he needs Jackie to help him out, because I think she had to research this one.
I think Jeff is smarter than me on this topic.
So this is from Sean Mullaney, the FI tax guy, and he wanted to know, do you have any sense for how widely available high deductible health plans are on the ACA exchanges? I know it's at least possible in California, though I have little sense of the scope and scale of availability. I love the idea of increasing a premium tax credit by taking a deduction for an HSA contribution.
Well, I live and breathe that. I'm on the Affordable Care Act, and I'm on a high deductible plan. I'm on the bronze plan, and I'm receiving advanced premium tax credits of almost $1,200 a month. And I use the HSA deduction to artificially suppress my income to receive the full advanced premium tax credit. And I think on Jackie's slide, it showed that there was a slight reduction of high deductible plans offered during a certain time period. Wasn't there on a slide it showed where they had dropped a little bit?
Yeah, let me bring that one up. I'm glad that one came up. So
number of people enrolling.
Yeah, I'm going to just show this slide officially. So if you want to reference it, but I didn't know much about this. So thanks, Sean. I went digging a little bit more. So yeah, the number of HSA eligible plans have been lowered, or they've become fewer and fewer, but typically every county in the country is going to have HSA eligible plans available, and they should be like somehow highlighted, or there's some indicator to say this is an HSA eligible plan. So right now, what's the number? I guess in 2022, they're saying that the number of HSA eligible plans dropped to 5%, which is pretty small number. It was 8% in 2019.
Yeah, where I live, I only have two providers, Blue Shield and Anthem Blue Cross, because I'm in a rural part of California. So I only have two of them. So what I do is 1 year, one might be a little bit higher and the other one might be a little lower. So I switch back and forth shopping, but I only have two choices.
Gotcha.
So,
and I can speak to my ACA plan, or I use the ACA for the state of Ohio, which is pretty good. I think there's like a minimum of 5 different providers. Like I end up going with, I think, Anthem. And this is very biased of me, but the choices for high deductible health plans were not attractive at all. And I think I even saw some high deductible plans on there that weren't even HSA eligible. And I'm thinking, why would I have a deductible this high and I can't even contribute to an HSA? So that's the reason why I have not been using an HSA eligible plan since I retired. I have a traditional plan where it's like a $500 deductible, really low deductible, low out of pocket, and I do get subsidies that help me out a lot.
But if I may interject, at the end of 2025, the extra money that was put into the advanced premium tax credit will be reduced if Congress doesn't make changes. So you may be making a change because you're probably on a silver plan, correct?
Correct. It's a silver plan supposed to be the best deal, right?
Right. But I didn't look at the best deal. I looked at it as a way of being able to make contributions in the HSA.
Gotcha.
And take that risk.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's kind of what Sean was talking about.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. In his question. Okay. Great question, Sean. What you got for us next, Bill?
All right. Next one comes from Christy. And she sent an email to Jackie, and she's considering an HSA option for next year. Her spouse, however, has a chronic cardiac diagnosis that is managed and stable, but requires ongoing monitoring. We have great coverage currently. Some years our costs are more than others, but we never hit max out of pocket. I love the idea of an HSA, but we always need to make sure he receives excellent care. I'm unsure how to evaluate HSA against current policy or other options, both price and coverage. How can we determine if it's right for us?
Yeah, I think that's a question a lot of us struggle with. I don't know if you talk to very many people, Jeff, and like why they hesitate to get on a high deductible plan.
You have to really be in great fiscal economic shape. That's what I would be asking her. I mean, are you still working? What is your net worth? What is your cash reserve? I mean, are you comfortable? Are you going to fund the HSA? If you do drop off the higher, richer PPO plan, What are you going to do with that money? Is that going to have to keep the lights on? I would have to know their overall financial condition. And then there's really no wrong or right answer because we never know what her husband's health condition is going to be.
Correct. And that's the unknown.
That's the unknown. So you're taking on that risk. But if you're going to take on that risk, you have to have financial resources to absorb that risk. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's totally true.
Yeah.
The part of her question that stuck out to me was the fact that she said they never met their maximum out of pocket before on a traditional plan. So the only thing that she can benchmark is what's happened in the past. So it sounds like they've not had a year that things have been astronomical. So I can tell you that the best calculator I have found to try and make this decision is from WEX Health. That will be in the presentation, but it's a calculator that allows you to put in certain data points so that you can look at the difference in an HSA eligible plan versus a traditional health insurance plan. You can put in things like, and these are the three big ones, your premium, your deductible, and your max out of pocket. And then the unknown that you have to estimate is how much you're paying out of pocket for the services that you're using. And it will come to some kind of comparison for you. But that is a question that a lot of people struggle with. And again, I always say the first year is the hardest year because it is a mindset shift and a behavior shift in how you use medical services. So that's a great question.
And as
Excellent.
Jeff says, you have to prepare for it. You need your health care emergency fund to protect your normal emergency fund. So there are steps involved here before you make this leap that I think people should think about because of those high deductibles and out of pockets. All right. The next question is interesting. I think it would be a common one from Pam. If my husband is on a high deductible health plan and part of my HSA with my employer, can he also open up his own HSA? I know the answer here, but you tell us, Jackie.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, do you know?
I'm going to say yes.
Okay. What do you think, Bill?
I'm going to say no.
Okay, the answer is actually yes.
Oh.
If as long as this person is on. Now, remember that scenario we looked at. Everybody was on Jill's family plan. Right. They all got to open up their own HSA. I'm sorry, this is teacher Jackie coming out.
Works for me. Bring it on, sister.
So he can. The only caveat is that the total, even if it's two separate HSAs, they still are only allowed to contribute up to the family max with both accounts combined. So yes, the spouse could open up their own HSA.
And if he's over age 55, it has his own account, he can do the $1,000 catch-up. Do I get the star, Jack?
Yes, boom, boom, boom. You get the star.
There you go. The important distinction is they can't both family max.
Exactly. They can't.
Right.
Not as a married couple. Not as a married couple. So the other thing to also consider is that catch-up contribution is for the person that's 55. So let's use Bill. So let's say if Bill is 53 years old and the high deductible plan is with him, but his wife is on there and his wife is 56. His wife would have to open up her own in order to do the catch-up contribution. Bill cannot do it on her behalf in his account. So that's an individual thing. If she wants that $1,000 catch-up, she has to do it in her own account.
All right. So here's a couple of hacks then that come to mind. They should get divorced and be domestic partners.
For HSA purposes, you are able to contribute more as domestic partners being on the same family plan than a married couple. But I'm going to tell Karen that you said that. So.
And one of them is a W-2 employee, so they get the FICA tax deduction as well. The other one is, say, a 1099 person, and one of them has terrible investment choices. Can you in-kind transfer from one to the other on an annual basis and use the investment choices of the one that has the better plan?
So let me clarify that. So you're saying it's a married couple, right? A married couple, and only one person has the insurance plan that both of them are on, the high deductible plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you can't transfer it in kind. It has to be in the same person's name if you want to move money from one HSA to another. Now, you as the employee, if you want to, you can have your contributions made through payroll, right? So you don't have to pay Social Security, Medicare. And then on the back end, once the money's in there, you can open up another HSA if you want to that has better options. Let's say Fidelity. So you can easily do that, but you can't take it from your name, Bill Yon, and transfer it to your spouse's name while you're living.
Okay. Yeah, because it's Social Security number specific, right?
Correct.
So let me understand this. If I had used, say my employer had an HSA that has poor choices.
Yeah.
And I'm getting a savings on the FICA taxes.
Yeah.
But I'm not getting a state savings because I live in California. Okay.
Yeah.
And those contributions are running through a Section 125 plan, right?
Okay,
To
correct.
get to the HSA. And my employer has a specific vendor that's not very good.
Right.
The money gets in there. Then I could uplift it out of there to Fidelity. Is this a one-time deal, Jackie?
No, you're exactly right. You are allowed to do that. So it's not like a 401k where you can only stick with your employer's 401k. You can open up as many HSAs as you want. It wouldn't make sense to open up a whole bunch, but for the purposes of saying, I got crappy choices in my employer HSA, I don't want to invest in there. So I think I'm going to open up my own HSA and I'm going to transfer the money that's in my employer's plan to this other one. Now, I wouldn't be trying to do that every month, but maybe once a year, you decide you want to move the money over. And of course, always check with your custodian, always check with the provider and know what their rules are. But you are allowed to have more than one HSA, even while you're currently employed with your employer.
Sorry, but in an employer plan, because I don't have any knowledge in it, is there a plan document like in a traditional 401k that would spell all this out? Is there something there? So you can do like an in-service plan transfer at least once a year by what you're telling us.
Well, yeah, I guess you could kind of label it that way. I mean, they don't call it that, but you can certainly move the money within your HSA at your employer. You can move it out into an HSA that you've opened up on your own.
So you don't have to sever service then?
Correct.
Awesome. I like this.
Yeah.
Good job.
There you go. You got a lot more. You have a lot more flexibility with your HSA, and not to mention also, hopefully many companies aren't still doing this or many employers, but sometimes there's a monthly fee that you have to pay. Most employers will pick up the tab for that, but some of them don't.
And you can take the employer contribution as well?
Correct. Because once the employer
puts it in.
Once the contribution leaves the employer's hand and gets into your account, that is your money, even if you left the company.
So you could have
no vesting. There's no vesting.
You could have employer contributions and employee contributions. Take both of those and then move it to a more advantageous, lower cost provider to invest it.
You sure can.
I like it.
You get to get your FICA tax reduction, you get to get your employer match, and then you get to move it to Fidelity where there's no cost to have an HSA and you have infinite investment choices.
Yeah, there you go. So that's definitely something to think about. Like I said, I wouldn't sit there and be trying to move money over once a month, but see what the rules are with Fidelity and if there's any restrictions on how often you can do that. But it's trustee to trustee. So it's a transfer. It's not a rollover. It's not a conversion or anything like that. It's a trustee to trustee transfer.
All right.
Oh, I like this. I like this.
All these scenarios are fun.
I love it.
It's they blow your mind.
It's kind of like putting a puzzle together. We got a couple more questions.
Okay.
That will probably prompt another hour of discussion. But
sorry.
my daughter will be graduating from college next year. This is from Pam again. She had like 5 questions.
We love Pam.
Pam's great.
And hopefully we'll have a job. Yeah, and claiming her own taxes. If she's still on my high deductible health plan with my employer, since she can stay until 26, can she open up her own HSA? And we have talked about this, right, Jackie?
Yeah, we did talk about that. So Pam is a woman after my own heart because she is thinking like that scenario I did with Jack and Jill.
Yeah.
So Pam, yes, your daughter, when she is no longer a tax dependent, that's important. If she's a tax dependent, she can't open up her own HSA because one of the things on the checklist is that no one else can claim you on your taxes. But if she's no longer a tax dependent and she is on your HSA eligible health insurance plan, she can open up her own HSA and contribute to the family max, or you can contribute for her.
All right. So, I mean, Pam is on it. I wonder how old she is because her daughter is graduating college. So she's probably
She's
in her
our age.
40s, late 50s. Yeah.
She's in this
Yeah.
Gen X club.
But
Sure.
she's a burgeoning expert here because she's asking.
We need to invite her on the next show.
Yeah.
She's
tearing
asking
it
the
up.
right question. Now, Pam has two more, but we answered one of them. I'll just reiterate. If I have an HSA with my employer, can I also open up another one with a vendor, another different vendor, or can I only have one HSA? You answered that, Jackie, and it kind of depends on what your investment choices are, and if you have a fee, and if you have good investment choices, you can offload things to another provider if the answer to those questions is no.
One other thing is that I don't want you to give up saving on your FICA taxes or that Social Security and Medicare tax. Always do it via payroll if you can. Some people might have been asked the question, well, maybe I shouldn't even do anything through payroll and I'll just do it on my taxes. Don't give up that little extra tax savings if you can.
Well, and you can have two simultaneously and just get your match, get your FICA savings. And once you've gotten that, use the other one.
Right.
On the FICA taxes, I look at it like a match. It's what's it,
7.65%.
Yeah. So I look at like that as a self match to me.
Yeah. Nice little bonus that, everybody talks about the triple tax savings. It's really triple tax plus a bonus. And that bonus is no FICA tax.
Also, the FICA tax savings is on the employer side as well. That's why we do it correctly.
There you go. Yeah, I'm sure that's right. They get a benefit too.
Fair enough. Thank you.
All right. Last question from Pam again. So if my husband, daughter, and I open up separate HSAs, how do you recommend we invest it? Should we just use it to accumulate and not use it for expenses until further down the road? Now, we've answered that one. Is there another short answer you want to give just to reiterate it for our audience, Jackie?
Yeah, just that there's no one way to use it. Now, it sounds like your idea is that you do want to use it long term, like me, Jeff, and Bill have been talking about. In that case, then you want to put it in something that would match up with your longer time horizon for investing. If you plan to use it, and again, that's perfectly fine. Some people might not say, I don't want to hold onto receipts. I don't really want to invest. I just want to use it for a current year health occurrences or for a big issue that happened. That's perfectly fine. But if you're going to do that, that's more of a short-term vehicle that you probably don't want to invest. So Jeff, what do you think?
Now, if I understand the question correctly, the daughter would have her own individual HSA, correct?
Let's see.
And she asked about if her husband and her could do it. I don't think they can, but.
So would the daughter have one herself?
Yeah, we did that scenario in that window between adulthood and non-tax dependent.
Have her own, and the daughter can contribute, or the mom or the dad's going to contribute to it. I'd have it invested completely way out high on the risk spectrum. Because if this daughter's 22, 23, 24, I want it for her 60 and 70-year-old self. That's how I would look at it.
I wouldn't put it in Bitcoin, though.
If you're with Fidelity, you might be able to do a Bitcoin ETF. But the whole thing is, you're right, with the daughter, you kind of have to look at it a little differently because, first of all, her healthcare expenses are likely to be very small if she's a young, healthy person. So you want to consider that. And she may have a longer time horizon than what you guys have. And it might be, I'm a teacher at heart, so it might be a good teaching opportunity. Maybe you say, hey, I'm investing this for you. And I just love dropping those little nuggets of knowledge where the kids have some skin in the game.
And teaching them about this. And if you can afford to fund it for them because they're low income, just like you can afford, you talk about sometimes this being a rich person's game, Jack. Obviously, Jeff did it on a very low income. But you did it on less than six-figure income. And I'm a higher income individual. We're all doing it. And the message here is everybody can do it to their own level. But you could turn this into open a Roth IRA for her. She's working. You fund it because she doesn't have the ability to do so. And then you fund her HSA. So look at what you've done between when they're like 21 and 26 or 18 and 26. You've set them up for being millionaires.
Yep.
Yeah. Great. Look at that. We've already turned Pam's family into millionaires.
If they implement the knowledge and back it up with behavior.
Okay, Jackie, we've covered HSAs up to this point, and it is a political issue, and we want to see some changes to the HSA. What do you see as ways to implement even a more broad approach to HSAs in the future, and what do you want our listeners to advocate for?
Yeah, there's been a lot of different proposals over the years. I do follow legislation in regards to HSAs, health savings accounts, and the high deductible plans they have to be paired with. So the most broad, which is the one I support, is to completely decouple HSAs from the type of health insurance that you're on. Like right now, you have to be on that high deductible health plan. They're saying, you know what? Plenty of people could benefit from having this tax-free health savings account, even if they're on a traditional plan, even if they're on Medicare, even if they're on, TRICARE. So I would like to see that implemented. I know that there has to be some nuances. So I'm speaking from a consumer standpoint, availability. Not everyone might not even be able to contribute, but to have it available regardless of what type of health insurance you're on, that's what I would love to see. And that has been proposed. I don't know the chances of getting it passed, but that would be what I would advocate for.
You're saying make it an HSA Roth where everybody has access to it.
Oh, yeah, but my caveat would be, you might have to assess the limits. So it has limits now, but if it's too much in terms of taxes, it's going to cost too much, maybe we put in some additional provisions on the limits or maybe some kind of income limits, because right now there's no income limits. So I don't know if you have to have some type of trade-offs to make that work. I'm guessing there would be. So someone would have to look at that really closely. But right now there's no income limits. I like that. But I would just love to see everyone having access to contribute to an HSA, regardless of what health insurance they're on. And then we kind of can tweak it starting there. And Jeff, I didn't know if you had any thoughts on that.
Oh, I think we should democratize it, make it available to everyone. I don't understand why we have to pigeonhole it into certain spots.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to have health coverage. Everybody's going to need it. So I think it would be a wonderful way for people to be incentivized to health fund future healthcare needs. I see it as a win-win to me, regardless of what health plan delivery system you're getting it from. I think it should be open to everybody. And I don't think it should be a left or right. I think it should be a win-win for everybody in our country. That's how I see it.
There you go. If Jeff ruled the world, this is what it would be. But I follow legislation and I will usually chat with you guys about it. But there is ongoing activity with making HSAs more available to more people. So stay tuned and we'll see how that makes its way through legislation. And hopefully we will. And there's been updates over the years, like the over-the-counter meds used to not be allowed for HSA dollars. Feminine hygienes, that used to not be allowed. Now it's allowed. There have been changes made. So it's not just sort of lying still. And there are Congress people that will throw out proposals here and there. So I'm keeping an eye on it. And I should be more of an advocate to say, this is what I think.
All right.
I totally agree.
I hope we've answered, many of your questions. There's going to be a lot more. Let's have a discussion about it in the Facebook community, and certainly reach out to Jackie or Jeff with your follow-up specific questions. Not me. I would refer you to them. Well, you've heard it here first, and we hope this is a sentinel episode for us because we have not heard this out there. And that's one of the reasons we invited Jeff on, because he had not heard of an episode like this out there, and we're all podcast listeners. We do, however, have a last question, and it comes back to our late starter community. How can HSAs be used as a tool for those getting a late start to FI?
Jeff, I would love to give you an opportunity to answer that.
Well, if you're late to catching up, this is just another opportunity for you to self-fund potential future healthcare expenses and take that stress off of you. Because one of the things I hear from people over and over, how am I going to pay for healthcare when I'm no longer working and I'm no longer getting subsidized healthcare from my employer? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I heard that at my work site. I go back and visit from time to time, and I talk to one individual. She goes, I'm only working here because I'm getting health coverage until I reach age 65. So if you're late to catching up to your financial independence, this is a great way and a pathway to get there, to use this tool. That's how I look at it. When I left the school, I was not fearful. When you have money, you have tools, and you have tools, you have options. And I just see this giving you another option, Jackie. How would you come about it? I mean, look at what it's done to your life, transformed it. Look what 12 years of behavior has done for you.
Right. And the fact that you don't have to be on a high deductible plan every year or forever. Open enrollment comes around every single year. That's why we're doing it towards the end of the year. Most people are doing open enrollment. And so I mentioned before that if you're in that Gen Xer, let's say you're in your 40s and 50s, this HSA has been around the bulk of our working lifetime where we can take advantage of it. So that could be a benefit. And then you get the catch-up contribution at 55 as well. But I would always argue, where does the HSA fit into your retirement planning, your drawdown strategy, and your tax strategy? Because there's several different areas in the personal finance world that these HSAs, several of these topics intersect. You got taxes, you got estate planning, you've got healthcare part, you've got so many different things that HSAs touch that could be very beneficial, especially if you're closer to that age where healthcare is something we start to think a lot more about.
I like Jeff's idea, just like Social Security and delaying it to 70, delaying your HSA to 80 is kind of the way. We need like a Social Security calculator. We need an HSA calculator.
And I will be putting an HSA calculator in the slides. That's a great reference, and you can run your numbers through there.
My question is, or suggestion is, when you have that calculator that's doing the modeling on the HSA, could you put give it the ability, if you take a federal and state tax deduction and you put that in there as well? Does that skew the numbers at all? Because if I'm going to say, if I put $5,300 and it saves me $1,200 in federal taxes, does that skew the calculation at all? Because that's what I did with my 403b7. If it saved me on my taxes, I just took that money, calculated, said, oh, I'll take that and put it back in so I don't have to put as much out. One person I threw that idea and said, Jeff, you should have taken your tax deduction and put it in a Roth, because then it's tax-free forever, based on today's tax laws.
Well, I just brought up the screenshot. This is through WEX Health. It is the best HSA / high deductible plan versus a traditional health insurance plan calculator. And so I haven't looked at it in a while, but looks like they've definitely refreshed it. But if you just Google WEX Health and HSA calculator, it talks about some of the benefits, but then you've got this calculator where you can plug in all these different data points. And it looks like they allow you to put in tax information. You can adjust the tax information. You can compare it with a FSA versus an HSA with the different health insurance plans. It even has some definitions. So I'll definitely say play with that, but it does have a tax component on this calculator from WEX Health.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Anytime I did my analysis using pencil and paper, I just look, this is, if the district's going to put 10,000 in and the HSA plan is 9,000, well, there's $1,000 difference between the two, if that makes any sense, right?
Yeah.
So there's savings going on. If the employer's going to put 10 in, but it's only going to cost 9, there's $1,000. I used to try to get my employer to give me back that 1,000. I would be under cap. But you remember, in a school system, it's very collectivist. I can't individually negotiate for Jeff.
Right. You kind of have to play those tricks on your own playing field.
Right. But in the real world, the employer will give you that back, that difference, because you're taking on more risk.
Right.
Guys, my head is spinning. My hair is on fire.
Whoa!
And
what hair?
I hope we've kept our audience on the edge of the seats. Basically, in the end,
this is a lot of fun.
This new stuff for a lot of people. It can be complicated stuff. You can keep it simple, though. You really, we've gotten in tricks and ticks and myths, but again, in the KISS principle, you can keep it simple and have a great tool in your toolkit, triple tax-free, to take care of healthcare in your later years so that you can offset some of those increasing costs, because we're healthy when we're young, and all of our healthcare costs go up towards the end, and when Jeff talks about, and that's when you want this healthcare savings nuclear device to help you take care of them.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, I have to thank you so much, Jeff, for coming on. You were a trooper here. I knew you knew more about HSAs than anyone else I know, but especially from a personal and firsthand experience standpoint that's valuable. Bill, a lot about HSAs as well, and you've got a lot of experience with yours. So I think together we make a lethal combination, and I'm glad that we had some fun here. I hope our audience is smarter for it. And we dropped so much stuff, and this is why we decided to make sure we had a presentation right along with it. There's links in there, there's references, there's articles, and it steps you through all of this. Reference the pieces that you need to go back to, but we're offering this completely free. We want to arm our audience with as much knowledge as possible. And so thanks again, Jeff, for joining us. Thank you to my co-host, Bill, and we'll catch you next time on Catching Up to FI. So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. So our social media is Diana Falk, our editor, Fritz Bassard, and show notes are done by Sarah von Sternberg. We love them and they keep us going.
Yeah, I mean, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community and we hope you love us back. If you want to support the show and what we're doing, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to virtually say thank you if you get value from our content. The link is in the show notes, or you can head over to our website at catchinguptofy.com and click on the Support the Podcast tab at the top right. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to FI. We would appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review so that our message can reach others.
While we are financial educators, and I'm a financial professional that loves to teach, our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
We'll see you next time on Catching Up to FI.